Deadline. J.K. Rowling tells John Oliver to read the effing room after he roasted right-wing rage at trans athletes. So yeah, John Oliver, if you don't know who he is, he's a political pundit. He has a television show. I guess it's on HBO, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. So I guess I'm looking for a lot of hate down in my comment section right now, because the last time I did a John Oliver video, got a lot of his little sycophants running around telling me that I was a bad person for disagreeing with John Oliver, even though I used valid arguments and sound arguments to debunk everything that he was saying. But nope, that wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. I'm just a bad person because I disagree with John Oliver. Let's get into this article here and see what it has to say. J.K. Rowling and John Oliver are facing off again over the issue of transgender athletes. The duo, linked by their respective creative partnerships with HBO, clashed last November after Oliver argued that there was no evidence trans athletes pose any threat to safety or fairness. What? Rowling claimed that Oliver was happy to watch females suffer injury, humiliation, and the loss of sporting opportunities. Okay then, well that is definitively not true. What the hell? Fallon Fox fractured a woman's skull. We had that lady from the volleyball match that got a concussion when a ball was spiked into her head by a man pretending to be a woman. Hey, if you like my content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. YouTube does unsubscribe people. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. Let's get back to the article here. On Sunday, Oliver dedicated the main section of Last Week Tonight to the GOP and MAGA manosphere obsession with transgender competitors and banning them in sports, especially via legislation aimed at the school level. Now, I do need to clarify Sunday, in case you're watching this on Monday when I release it. They don't mean Sunday yesterday, they mean Sunday a week ago. Yeah, so why are you against banning teenage boys competing against teenage girls in sporting events? It seems to me that that would be a reasonable conclusion to come to. That you don't put men into like women's football. People are gonna get hurt. During the segment, he referred directly to their spat last year, during which Rowling accused Oliver of spouting absolute BS. It feels a bit weird to catch that much heat from the creator of Harry Potter, especially when I clearly look like what would have happened to him if they left him in that cupboard for the rest of his life, he joked, adding that he stands by everything he said last year. You're an idiot, John Oliver. I haven't watched his show much in the last few years because I like his show. I like his delivery. He does a really good job on his delivery, but there's just too much dishonesty there. Don't know why I haven't stopped watching or listening to NPR, because they're just as bad, if not worse, but I haven't for whatever reason. Oliver acknowledged that the subject is complicated and requires nuance, but argued that you can basically say anything you want about trans people as long as you tag on in sports after it. John, I know you come from a foreign, highly oppressive civilization called the UK, where you're not allowed to say anything about anybody, especially if they're considered a minority. But here in the United States, we have this thing called freedom of speech, and we're allowed to say whatever we want to about trans people. It's perfectly legal. So shut your hole and go back to where you came from. In a post on X, Twitter, on Monday, Rowling responded, "I understand why men like Oliver, who's consistently mocked anti-science people on the right, sold out initially. They didn't want to blow up their careers. Taking fashionable anti-women's rights positions was the cost of doing business, but it's time to read the effing room." And there's that tweet from J.K. Rowling, and we are going to watch this video here. I don't think we can watch it. Well, maybe we can watch it. Let's see it here.
Here she is explaining what we do.
All right, let's go ahead and finish this article, and then we'll come back to the video, because the article's almost over, right? So it's right there. In another message, she added, "They're still regurgitating Twitter TRA talking points from 2020. I can't imagine anyone being so far up their own backside they haven't noticed that this nonsensical crap is facing a massive grassroots backlash, that it loses elections, and that girls and women are being harmed. The argument is awkward for Warner Brothers Discovery, given that Rowling and Oliver are effectively colleagues. Rowling is heavily involved in adapting Harry Potter into a television series for HBO, which doubles as the home for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. That should be interesting. I wonder how they're going to do this. If J.K. Rowling is part of this, and she clearly has her mind wrapped around the idea that we shouldn't be transing the kids, that women have a place in society that should not be diluted by making them into men or, surrogate men of some sort. But then on the other hand, I've heard and I've seen the pictures that the Snape is supposed to be black now. I believe that, like, in Snape's case too, being white was like a big part of his backstory. I don't know. I worked on the movies. I should know, right? I don't know the whole Harry Potter backstory thing. I don't follow Harry Potter. I was never really interested in Harry Potter, which is weird because I love medieval fantasy and it's basically like a modern sort of medieval fantasy adventure. So maybe I should get more into Harry Potter since I worked on the movies. I like medieval fantasy, magic and monsters, swords and sorcery, all that stuff. So maybe I should check out those movies. I don't know. I watched the first one, I didn't like it, and then I watched the ones that I worked on. I didn't like them either. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe the books are awesome. Whatever. Let's take a look at this video on the X Twitter place and see what John Oliver has to say here. Now, it's my understanding that his whole show on that Sunday night was about trans athletes being in sport and how it's okay for males to compete against women in sport. Now, you notice how nobody's ever going off and saying, it's okay for women to compete against men in sport. It's fine. Nobody says that. Do you know why? It's because they're full of crap. It's not okay for women to compete against men in sport. And those who can, those rare few who can, make it into a men's sporting league. They're not men's sporting leagues. They're just sporting leagues. At a professional level, they can handle it. But those are the exception, not the rule. By far the exception, not the rule.
Here she is explaining what we do and don't know at this point.
It is undoubtedly true that trans women will maintain advantages in some sports. Probably not so much in endurance sports. But
you're right, not so much in endurance sports, but still, men have greater endurance. Why do they have greater endurance? Because they can pull more of their muscle into the effort, and subsequently they have more muscle to pull into. Because endurance is also about muscle fatigue. It's not just about lung capacity, but also men have bigger hearts and bigger lungs. So hey, it's about lung capacity and cardiovascular. So
in size and strength sports, trans women will also have some physiological disadvantages. Our larger frames are now being powered by reduced muscle mass.
No, that's not true. It may be true a little bit, but with muscle mass also goes bone density. Did you not know that, dear viewer? I'm sure you did. I'm sure at least some of you did, right? So as women get older, they're more prone to osteoporosis. So what do doctors regularly prescribe to fight osteoporosis? Lift weights. It's commonly known that that's what they do. Why? Because as you put tension on the muscle, that puts tension on the bone, and the bone gets denser because of it. So if you have smaller muscles, you're going to have less dense bones.
And reduced aerobic capacity, and that can lead to...
How are they getting reduced aerobic capacity? Because their lungs aren't shrinking. Lungs don't shrink when you change your hormones. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm not a biologist, but as far as I know, they don't.
Disadvantages in terms of like quickness, recovery, endurance, things that maybe aren't quite as obvious as being bigger and stronger.
Right, bigger and stronger bodies are not automatically advantaged in every scenario. I mean, put The Rock in a Pure Bar class and see what happens. I mean,
do people compete in Pure Bar? I can guarantee you that they don't. If you're going to have a competition in ballet, I'm thinking women are going to win that. If it's men versus women. Not because men can't be good ballerinas, but do you want to see a male ballerina? I don't. I'm sure there's some amazingly beautiful dance routines that involve both men and women in ballet. If somebody came down to me and said, hey, look, we can go to this ballet event and you got to choose. One's going to be all women and one's going to be all men. Which one do you want to go to? I'm going to go to the all women one. There's no question.
we know what would happen. He'd take a video of himself, caption it, "Mad respect to these mamas, everyone go see Moana 2," and try to use it to sell his tequila before eating 13,000 pancakes and drinking a cow. We know what would happen.
Now, I gotta say, I really do like John Oliver's sense of humor. I wish that I could off the cuff, I know this isn't off the cuff, but I wish that I had that kind of delivery and timing and could off the cuff do these sorts of things. But I can't. I have, I think, a pretty good sense of humor, but I'm just slow. I'm not witty. I'm not clever in the moment. I'm one of those people who's always like, damn it, I should have said this every single time I get into some sort of social situation.
But But the degree of difference here matters because we expect a certain amount of difference in athletics. Taller basketball players are expected to compete against shorter ones, faster soccer players compete against slower ones. Michael Phelps was allowed to compete with other swimmers despite being part dolphin. And crucially, none of the studies I've mentioned so far bear much relevance to what these new laws target, which is youth sports, usually of all ages. And the research there is even more scant.
Okay, so if we don't have research there, then why don't we just go with what we already know, that boys are bigger and stronger than girls, and bigger, stronger, faster, and have greater lung capacity and bigger hearts, thicker bones, thicker skin, all of the things that are going to make you a better athlete in almost every sport. Now, when it comes to little kids, prepubescent kids, okay, you might have an argument, but when it comes to teenagers, no, you don't have a leg to stand on.
We have no research about how being trans or undergoing gender-affirming treatment impacts athletic performance in teens. And when it comes to kids before the onset of puberty, I could talk about the studies showing the subtle performance differences between boys and girls, but I'd argue when you're talking about 7-year-olds, as a practical matter, that's a point where lots of school sports are co-ed anyway, and a key difference between competitors on a field can come down to whether a kid was born in October or April.
That's true. This is actually a problem that they see, I guess, in baseball, where they don't consider the month a child was born in, only the year. So if a child was born in, say, January of that year and another child was born in December of that year, they're considered the same age, even though they're basically a year apart. And for a 7-year-old, that can be a big difference. But you do have to consider that girls they're just not as athletic, even prepubescently. I remember when we used to play kickball in gym class in grade school. And this was my strategy. Whenever they put a girl on first base, cover first base, my strategy was I would kick the ball and didn't care where it went, really, as long as it didn't go towards first base. And then I would just kind of leisurely run out to first base, knowing that the girl was not going to catch the ball and tag me out before I got there. And it wasn't because the ball wouldn't be in her presence or in her area before I got to that base, but it's because she was a girl and wasn't going to be athletically inclined enough to get the ball. Every single time I got up to kick the ball, I did this whenever there was a girl on first base. And every single time, I made it at least to third base, if not a home run, because of that strategy. And I'm not like some super athletic dude at this point in my life. I've always said I'm small. There's no bones about it. I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my entire life. I weigh almost 153 pounds right now. I'm the fattest I've ever been. I'm gross. I look in the mirror, like, ugh. So, I didn't become athletic. I didn't become athletic until I was a teenager, a late teenager. And that's when I started getting into athletics. But before then, I would run around in the woods and stuff and play capture the flag and play hide and seek and things like that. But yeah, I wasn't like concentrating on my athleticism by any stretch like I do now.
And at this point, you might be saying, well, I don't need to wait for scientific research. This is all common sense, and I know what I've seen online. But a lot of what you've seen may not be quite what you think it is, both when it comes to trans athletes' impact on competition or safety.
All right, so that's the end of that. I do want to actually play the whole episode, but that's going to get into a lot of editing, copyright stuff I have to worry about. And so I don't want to deal with that. I'll probably try to find a link to the full episode, and then you can watch it. I'll put it down in the comments. Anything. Now, let's assume that John is right. Hey, look, there's no real big impact. There's no like dangerous impact of men competing against women in sports. Let's see what Adam Carolla has to say about it. Right now, Adam Carolla is responding to a young woman who refuses to fight against a trans man in fencing. And so this is what he has to say about fairness in sports. And, John Oliver and the woke are all about things being fair, right? We got to have representation. We've got to have the representation. We've got to have the trans in there. It's representation, right? Well, representation doesn't matter to me. Merit matters to me. And fairness matters to me. In this case, Adam's going to go on about fairness here. Let's see what he has to say.
I don't, the argument is, here's the argument. The right goes, we don't want men competing with women. By the way, there's never beef about the other way around. No one ever goes, hey, this chick wants to join the men's football team, and everyone goes like, fine, because I don't think they have an advantage. Like, it only goes one direction. The beef is with a physical advantage over your opponent. Sports, here's the thing about sports, everybody. Listen to me. Sports are all about parity all the time. That's all they do. NASCAR F1, the scrutineering is insane. I mean, every car needs to pass tech 100%. Even in my vintage racing, they have tech inspections for cars. And they will tell you, they go, okay, we're doing this vintage race. It's the Rolex Historics in Monterey. Here's your run group. Here are the tires you can run. You cannot run modern tires. It's unfair to other people for you to be on these non-biased slicks or whatever, whereas other guys are running old school tires that would be appropriate with the era that the car was raced. So they got tons of rules because they go, look, it's got to be just the driver. We're going to check, and they pass the car through tech. F1 is.
And there you go. He's got to be just the driver. And John Oliver brought up Michael Phelps, saying, well, he's part Dolphin. We let him compete. Well, Michael Phelps is Michael Phelps. He is just advantaged somehow. We don't know how. So step up your game. Other men that he's competing against. We're not saying we need to put a tether on him so it makes it harder for him to go. Because that's what's fair. Because that's what you're doing when you bring these trans men into these sports against women. You're putting a tether on the women, saying, "Okay, well, that's what's fair." It's not fair though, because there's such a big advantage being a man that people are going to get hurt.
It's like, forget about it. Templates and measurements and weights and blah, blah, blah. If a car has like an advantage, like back in the day, they'll start adding weight to the back of the car to stop their advantage. Tom Brady had 4 less pounds in his football of air, and they're like, fuck that. No, they have to be, you cannot deflate gate over here. We don't need to put gate behind everything that's controversial. I don't know why we do that all the time. But the point is all we do is parody. That's all we do. Or how about, it's the Little League, and there's a guy on the 13-year-old team, but he's Dominican, and he lost his driver's license, and he's got a mustache. And it's like, we can't have a 17-year-old playing with the 13-year-olds. And it's all parody. That's all it is. We go, we need to even out the playing field. I mean, they even have, it's like in football, they go, you go this direction for the first half, and then you go the other direction in the second half, in case there's something going on. The wind is blowing, or the field's a little out of kilter, whatever it is. 0 advantages. So this is really just an extension of what we always do, which is there's nobody in the MLB who plays with an aluminum bat. And if you did try to go up to the plate with an aluminum bat, they'd be like, no, got to be out of hickory or whatever.
Now they do the torpedo
bat. Well,
yeah.
But see,
same thing though.
You're making my point, which is somebody came out with a bat that's a little bit different in shape, and now it's a big discussion. Can we use this bat? Is it an advantage? No one says it's a 50% advantage. Is it a 2% advantage? If it is, that's too much because we need parity. So that's all this is. The guy's got a little more muscle mass, a little taller, he's a little stronger. He's got an advantage, so we're against it.
Yeah.
And then the Democrats are always like, what are you guys obsessed with this for? And the answer is like, we didn't want to be obsessed with it, but this thing started happening, and then we said, no, that's all. You don't have to be obsessed with it. Just, no.
It's fencing culture, I guess. A lot of people are from.
All right, so that you get his point. I think he made it pretty clearly. Get men out of women's sports. It's so funny to me. People don't even see this. We decided to make a country where men and women compete with each other in every aspect instead of being cooperative and getting along with each other. So ridiculous. We need each other to cooperate and get along to build a healthy society. If we're tearing down our society, we need endless competition. Anyway, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next video.